matter. And this is the story of Willowbrook State School.
The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible.
Willowbrook State School has a dark and twisted history and is a place where the lines between real horror and fictional horror are blurred. Located in Staten Island, New York, this institution holds a dark history that will send chills down your spine. In this video, we will delve into the disturbing past of Willowbrook State School and the urban legend of Cropsy, a boogeyman that haunts the dreams of many. Let's look into the history and background of the building. The building was constructed in 1942 and was used as a state army hospital until 1947. In 1947, the Willowbrook State School opened its doors. In 1974, it was renamed Staten Island Developmental Center. In 1983, the state announced its closure, but it wasn't until 1987 that the doors actually closed. Initially, the institution was built to house 4,000 children and aimed to care for and school children with mental disabilities, providing relief for parents and caregivers who did not have the knowledge or resources to care for a disabled child. However, this was not the case. Only a handful of well-behaved patients were initially schooled for about 2 hours a day, with the rest of the children being left unstimulated and often unsupervised and rarely going outside of the institution walls. By 1965, the institution had a population of 6,000 patients. Conditions of overcrowding, neglect, malnutrition, and filth prevailed, while patients having to sleep on chairs, the floors, and many patients were malnourished, abused, and even confined in solitary during their stay. Those who misbehaved were caged or strapped to furniture, often suffering abuse at the hands of their caregivers. The abuse and maltreatment of patients at Willowbrook was always hidden from the public eye or covered up with explanations of accidental injury. Even when a young girl at Willowbrook died under suspicious circumstances due to strangulation, the incident was attributed to accidental death by staff. According to staff, the girl's head got stuck between the straps of a feeding chair, resulting in her death. The staff explained that the straps were tested for safety and approved as a measure of restraint and aid for those with disabilities, and that understaffing contributed to the lack of supervision during the incident. As if the appalling conditions and the abuse and maltreatment of patients weren't enough, it is said that a staggering 100% of the patients at Willowbrook State School contracted hepatitis by the end of 1963. The spread of hepatitis at the institution only enabled the monster that was running the facility. The first real boogeyman of Willowbrook State School used the infection as an excuse for further unethical research and studies into hepatitis. The studies aimed at finding a vaccine and ultimately a cure for patients. The research studies were approved and sponsored by the US Armed Forces Epidemiological Board. The very doctor behind these studies led to what is seen today as one of the most unethical medical experiments ever performed on children in the United States. And this leads us to the very first boogeyman of Willowbrook State School, Dr. Sol Krugman. Between 1963 and 1966, Krugman promised parents that their children would be enrolled in Willowbrook in exchange for signing a consent form for procedures he claimed to be vaccinations. In reality, children with mental disabilities were intentionally infected with hepatitis. Parents seeking desperately for adequate care for their disabled children agreed to the terms in exchange for enrollment. Krugman depended on the fact that these children were disabled, knowing that they would not be able to comprehend or communicate what was happening to them. Krugman feeded on the vulnerability and helplessness of these disabled children to gain recognition and status in the medical world. In 1968, a documentary, Suffer the Little Children, aired and brought more public attention to mental institutions in the USA, specifically reporting on conditions in Penhurst Asylum. In 1972, many of the staff at Willowbrook were complaining about the inhumane and abusive conditions at the institution. Eventually, a nurse at Willowbrook gave a key to the facility to a reporter, which would lead to the biggest expose of Willowbrook State School. This is the same year, 1972, that Dr. Krugman becomes president of the American Pediatric Society. Barbara Bloom, a former nurse at Willowbrook State School, helped journalist Geraldo Rivera to gain access to the property, where he would gather photographic and video evidence of the horrific, appalling conditions. His footage was aired on WABC TV, which finally allowed the public to see what was happening at Willowbrook. The documentary led to the lawsuit filed by residents of Staten Island. The Willowbrook State School, however, still operated. In 1978, even after the documentary of Geraldo Rivera aired, Dr. Sol Krugman was awarded the Gold Robert Koch Prize. In 1981, Dr. Sol Krugman received the John Howland Award, and in 1983 he was awarded the Mary Woodard Lasker Public Service Award. In 1983, the state finally announced that Willowbrook State School would close for good. Patients were transferred to other facilities, and the last 250 of its patients only left the facility in 1987. Linked to the Willowbrook State School, and specifically Staten Island, an urban legend was born, a boogeyman of sorts that lurked in the shadows of the woods and the abandoned corridors of Willowbrook School, was a boogeyman preying on children, always watching, always waiting. This is the urban legend of Cropsey. It was said that Cropsey would stalk and target children that have wandered into the woods alone, young campers, and kids exploring the Willowbrook area. Cropsey was often depicted as an escaped mental patient or a man in a dark robe with a hook or an axe, capturing and killing children. The legend of Cropsey was well known and popular during the 1970s and 80s, but no one even ever imagined that it would become true. In 1972, 5-year-old Alice Pereira went missing from Staten Island. In 1977, 18-year-old Audrey Lynn Nierenberg went missing from Staten Island. In 1978, 46-year-old Ethel Louise Atwell went missing from Willowbrook State School parking lot after her shift. In 1978, 44-year-old Shin Lee went missing from Willowbrook State School after walking home from campus. In 1981, 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes went missing from Staten Island. In 1983, Tyrese Jackson, 11, went missing from Staten Island. In 1984, 22-year-old Hank Gaffario went missing from Staten Island. In 1987, 12-year-old Jennifer Swiger went missing from Staten Island. During investigations of the disappearances, police suspected that the suspect was living in close vicinity of the Willowbrook State School on Staten Island. It wasn't until 1987 when 12-year-old Jennifer Swiger, born with Down syndrome, went missing and her body was found after a 35-day search that police eventually found enough relating evidence to make an arrest. After searching the area of her shallow grave, police found her suspected killer's makeshift campsite in close proximity of Willowbrook State School. Cropsey was real, and he had a name: Andre Rand. Andre Rand was born in 1944, New York City. Rand's father died when he was 14 years old. His mother was institutionalized at Pilgrim Psychiatric Center in Brentwood, New York, where he and his sister would often visit her. In 1966 until 1968, Andre Rand worked at Willowbrook State School as a custodian using the name Frank Bruchette. He also worked as an orderly and a physical therapy aide. It is interesting to note that Rand was employed by a psychiatric institution, and it leaves room for questioning the vetting processes of Willowbrook State School during those years. In 1969, Rand is arrested for kidnapping and attempting to sexually assault a 9-year-old girl. He pleaded guilty to sexual abuse and was sentenced to 4 years in jail. He only served 16 months and gained parole in January 1972 and legally changed his name to Andre Rand. In 1979, Rand was accused of sexually assaulting a woman and a 15-year-old girl, but neither pressed charges. In 1983, he drove a school bus and picked up 11 children from Staten Island YMCA, purchased a meal for them without any consent of their parents, and took them to the Newark Liberty International Airport. None of the children were harmed, but Rand was arrested and served 10 months in jail for unlawful imprisonment. It is only in 1988, after the body of 12-year-old Jennifer Schwager is found, Rand is charged with first-degree kidnapping and first-degree murder, but only convicted to first-degree kidnapping of the 12-year-old girl. A lack of evidence linking him to the murder of the girl results in the conviction of kidnapping alone. In 2004, Rand is charged and convicted of first-degree kidnapping of 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes, who disappeared in 1981. Again, no